Today, I want to share with you a coaching call that I actually did earlier in December, and it was with Karen. And we were talking about where to get started. She had questions on with all of the routines and all of these different things that we could focus on. It can be very overwhelming, and you just don't know where to start. So that's where we really wanted to give her an action plan on where to begin. And then once she has one thing in place, what to move to next and then how to continue doing that so she can get really organized and feel really good about the routines that she has in place to help her feel like she has it all together and can just enjoy the time with her kids and with her business and all of the things. So if you are feeling the same way where you're just questioning like where do I start first, this is going to be a great conversation for you to listen in on, and I hope you can take some things away from this that are super helpful.
Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast. All right. So what do you want to talk about this morning? What do we want to go over?
I guess my main thing is like, okay, so there's all these different things, all these different routines, or all these different things you can set up. Like, where do you start initially? I'm assuming you just kind of pick one of these things and you focus on that, and then you work in these other things. But I don't know where to start. And there's just like, and there's a ton of episodes to listen to, or there's a book, or there's this, and how, like, where
Yep.
do you start, or how do you start with it out without it being overwhelming?
Yep. That's a good question because I think if you go too much at once, it does get overwhelming and then it's hard to build that consistency over time. So I would always suggest to start with some type of morning routine. And the only reason I say a morning routine, and I know for some people it's really hard to do that, especially if you have little ones, and I think you said you have 4 kids.
Hmm.
So that's a lot and you might have a lot going on in the mornings. The the reason I say a morning routine, if you can squeeze it in, even if it's just 5 minutes, is that it's going to set your day up a little bit better than without it, because otherwise you might be getting out of bed and everything's scrambling and you just might feel really rushed right away in the morning, where we wanna set your day up really well. Even if it's just taking 5 minutes for yourself, it doesn't matter, whatever is important to you to do in the mornings, whether like, I know for me, I like to have some sort of, like, hot drink and to make sure that I am doing my Bible study because otherwise I'm not going to get to it. So you just have to decide like what is it that you think is really important to you, and then can you squeeze in any bit of that and how much can you do and what's realistic for you. And I think sometimes it's nice to have a long routine and even a short one so that if you can't get to your longer one, you still have some sort of backup plan where it's like, okay, I know that I can take 3 minutes to, be in my room and do, these stretches or deep breathing or go for a walk around the block, whatever it is that feels really good to you, that just makes you feel more rejuvenated when you start your day, you're going to show up better in your day than if you skipped that. So that's where I would start. And then when you get really, do you have a morning routine right now before we move on?
I think it's just kind of by default. Like, you get up in the morning, um, weigh in, take care of well, probably get the kids started, do breakfast and that sort of thing, and then get dressed, brush your teeth, and that sort of thing. And um, I probably get the kids on the bus before I would shower, but and then you kind of go into your day. So,
Yep.
I mean, those are kind of the things that I already put in. I do not, and like as I'm getting ready, that's when I'm listening to my Bible app, going through um, whatever Bible plan I'm on. Um, but there probably would be a benefit to just taking some time to just sit and actually open the physical Bible, or just reading instead of listening. Um, I mean, that's kind of the things that go into my morning that just kind of happen by default because they have to happen.
Yeah. So do you ever feel like there's something missing where do you feel like really rushed in the morning or kind of chaotic or anything like that? Is there anything ever that it's like, oh, I wish I had time to do, XYZ?
Mm, I don't know if there's anything that I really feel like I need to put in. I know that mornings feel rushed if the kids didn't do like picking out clothes or the morning or the evening before
Mhm.
because like my oldest daughter she's 10 now. She will get very particular about I need black pants or I need my jeans or I need this, and then she'll have forgotten to spend the time the night before looking for these things, so we're scrambling around looking like where are these particular pants you want or something like that. So some of it is just prepping the night before, which sometimes can be hard because like last night we have stuff going on at church. So you get home from the bus, we have a little bit of time and then we go to church for the evening. And then it's pretty much bedtime when we come home. So if they didn't plan before we left, there might be like a scramble this morning to be like, oh, I need to get this outfit ready or that sort of thing. That's probably where the most chaos comes in, is when we didn't prep the night before. Otherwise, it's pretty smooth. They get up and they all get dressed on their own, and you make breakfast and get them on the way. That's usually where the chaos would come in, is when we didn't plan well enough ahead the night before.
Yep. And that is very important. So I'm glad you're doing that. And the thing is if you're already doing your Bible study and everything and you have something set that you're not feeling overwhelmed in the mornings most of the time, as long as you feel like you've prepped enough the night before, then what you're currently doing might be sufficient for your morning routine if that kind of makes you feel really good. You don't have to build this extra routine that you have to shove in if this is something that's already working really well for you. If you want to change it and kind of test some things out, you can certainly do that. But don't feel like if what you're doing in the mornings feels good to you, don't feel like you need to change it just to follow these steps, because that is your morning routine and you feel good about that. So that is totally fine. So if you are once you have your morning routine in place and you like where it's at, and it's always going to be changing based on the seasons of life, like don't don't feel like you have to stick to one thing for the rest of
Mhm.
your life. Like it's
Yes.
going to change, and it might change multiple times throughout the year based on what's going on. um and then the next one that I would move to is your meal planning routine. I like getting that one set up. Do you have a meal planning routine in place right now, or is that something that you would want to work on or talk about at all?
That's something that kind of it comes and goes. Um, it's
What's your
never
biggest struggle keeping a morning routine, or what's working well for what you do for meals? Or I'm sorry, not morning routine, meal planning.
um I think it's just actually sitting down and thinking about it, just taking the time to do it. Because there's been times where I'm basically doing a brain dump and it's like, okay, this is what we got to get done on these days with like work and stuff like that. So then there will be times where it's like, okay, I'm just going to figure out, I'm sitting here planning out the week or a couple days here. I'm going to just figure out like we could have this day and this day. So usually when I've done it, it's only been like a couple days at a time. And then because like when we get to Wednesday nights, we actually have a meal at church. So it's like, okay, I don't have to do anything on Wednesday evenings. Like the kids have snacks and stuff, but I don't have to make an actual meal on Wednesdays. So I think when I've done it, I'm usually probably doing my kind of brain dump planning stuff on a Sunday. So then I'll plan for those couple days. And then by the time we get to Thursday or Friday, then I don't, or Saturday even, I haven't taken the time to figure out what we're going to do those days.
Yep.
So
And does that feel more overwhelming a little bit when once you get to those days and now you have to figure out what's for dinner and planning those out?
I know that I know that when I have planned it out, it is nice to know like, okay, this is what I'm making. So then I know like this is the ingredients or this is what, you know, I don't have to sit and think. And that's
Yeah.
a I think that's probably the biggest struggle, is just having enough like mental capacity or whatever bandwidth to make all these decisions. And if I take the time where I know I'm in a good place to make all these decisions, then it's a lot easier to look at the week and make these decisions versus trying to make them that afternoon or that day during the day when you're thinking about what we're going to have. Because when you get further into the week, then the decision fatigue comes in. And so I think it's just something that I have to just start doing and getting into the routine of like, let's plan on this. And then I'd have to plan it. And I'd also have to remember to plan in leftovers, because you make so much and then we have leftovers. And then if we always plan something new, then we never eat the leftovers. I guess unless we're doing them for lunch or something. But
we do the same thing. And so if you, depending on which episodes you've listened to, one of my favorite things for meal planning is to do just a wall calendar and keep it super simple. So you could do a menu board if you already have one, is something like that. But I like to do just a very simple wall calendar on a 3M hook inside of our cabinet. So then we don't have to worry about, what it looks like or anything like that. And I use these friction erasable pens. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but it just makes it super handy to write it out. And if something changes, I can easily erase it and then just write it in. You could also use pencil or pen if you don't care about crossing things out. But when you sit down, if you're doing a brain dump already on a Sunday, then you just grab that calendar and really look at your calendar and block off Wednesdays for church night. And then we usually do some sort of like fridge sweep day, is what we'll call like leftovers, or just kind of taking those ingredients that are at the end of the week and making something like, how our parents always used to do when we're growing up, and you like grab things that are in the fridge and just make something with the whatever you have left so it doesn't go to waste before you shop again. And it helps empty out the fridge too, so it's easy to just clean out really quick and then put new groceries in. So I really like the wall calendar because it's super simple and it makes it really easy to just write in those dinners. If you want to add breakfasts and lunches, you certainly can. I know for us, it's pretty common to have something very similar. So we might write like one thing, or it's just kind of a default where we only write in dinners because that's what I know I can stick to consistently.
Yeah.
And then it just makes it really easy. And like you said, that the decision fatigue is gone. Like it might not be difficult to plan what to make, but it can be really frustrating in the moment if you don't already know. And I love the wall calendar because it's not like you're erasing a menu board. Once you do this consistently, you have weeks upon months of meal plans at your fingertips all the time. So if you get stuck, you can just look and see what has been in the past. I even like to do on the very back page of it, there's usually that blank page. I just like write down all of our favorite meals or something that we have very commonly. And at the end of last year, before I transferred over to the new calendar, I just wrote it all in. And it was a little time consuming. It probably would be better to just type them all up and print the page and stick it on the back, but I didn't do that. But that's another thing where if like you can't think of something, you're really stuck, just browse that and something might pop out at you. And like that might be something too, where your kids, I think you said they were 11 and 10, or your two older ones.
Yes.
And it's like, maybe they would like to help you, like, what is one meal you would like this week? And then they can help kind of plug that in too. And then they're a little more excited about what they're going to be making, or maybe even make with you, those kinds of things. So that is mine. Like, I like to keep it really simple. And the nice thing about planning it out for the week is that a lot of times you can do your shopping list right then. So then you only have to stop at the store one time that week. You have everything. And when you get it home, you can just clean and prep whatever you need to prep, like vegetables I love doing, and then get it in the fridge. And so it makes it super easy throughout the week to just make what you need to make because everything is right there and ready to go for you. So that's the second one I would suggest doing. Once you have that in place and you're really comfortable with that, then you could add your daily 7 home routine if you don't already have that in place. Is that one that you have been working on at all? Have you listened to any episodes on that one?
No.
Okay. So the daily 7 home routine is probably one of my favorites because it makes just keeping up with the house so much easier. So what you'd want to do is basically do your brain dump of all the different things that you do in your home and get a nice long list of them. And you actually want to save this list for a different thing later. But you do this whole list of all of your tasks, and then you really take a look at them and think about like, what are the things that make my home feel really good? And like when these are done, I feel great. And you want to pick only your top 7. If 7 is too many, then just start with like 3 to 5. And basically what you're doing is you're taking the things that are the most important to you and you're creating a like structured routine of what you can repeat daily in like under 30 minutes. You don't want to go over 30 minutes. These ideally would take like 15 to 20 if you can, just because it's going to be easier to stay consistent with it. But you can go up to 30 if you need to. And that is something that you just repeat the same way. So it might take a little bit of testing in the beginning to figure out, what's the most efficient, in what order do I do these? And then once you get a pretty solid plan on what feels really good and it flows really well with how you have your house set up and everything, then you just repeat those. And like the first one basically becomes like a trigger task. Like that is the thing that will launch you into your routine. So like if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling frustrated or you don't feel like cleaning, then it's like, okay, if I can just do this one thing, that's the first task. If I can do this, and then all of a sudden it will kind of launch you into your routine once you have repeated it over and over. And it doesn't feel like so much work and such a hassle to actually like go through the process of cleaning. So it might not be every little detail that's in your house, but it's like, okay, if wiping down the bathrooms is important to you, make sure that's on your list. If having a nice straightened couch is important to you, put that on your list. Like things like that. Just you pick 7 or less, and then you repeat them in the same order. And once you have that in place, like the biggest key is to make sure that you stay focused on those and only those. So it's like, it's so easy to start cleaning and then it's like, oh, well, I can't fit anything in this drawer. So now I need to clean up this drawer. And then you kind of get distracted and all of a sudden it looks like a tornado went through and you've been cleaning for 2 hours and it feels like nothing got done. So you want to make sure you get these priorities done. Once those are done, then if you have time, move on to something else. But if you don't, you can feel really good about making sure those priorities are done. And then that is just kind of what you do is you have this little daily 7 home routine plugged in. And then that is what is kind of going to anchor your day each day. And if you can't get it done every day, that's fine. But you'll probably notice like what we do is if I skip this routine, it takes a little bit longer the following day because things kind of pile up. So it makes it a lot easier to do it daily. And then you feel really good about that routine being in place. So that is definitely one I would highly recommend. And maybe if you have your morning routine in place and you feel good about where you're at meal planning, just make a few little shifts in the meal planning to get your full week scheduled and then move into your daily 7 home routine. And a lot of people will ask like, what do you do with the other tasks now that you have those priorities, but what do you do with the other stuff? So this is where I have an episode about annual tasks, and you're in our Facebook group. So if you go into the Facebook community, in the pinned post at the top, there is an episode library. If you haven't seen that already, it's a spreadsheet you can open and search. So you could search annual task list, you could search daily 7, things like that. And you can pick those episodes out. So then it gives you a little bit more structure on like where to start rather than feeling like you have to re-listen to all of the episodes. But the annual task list is you kind of take that leftover task list that you didn't choose for your daily 7. And then this sounds like a lot. So if it feels like a lot, take one thing at a time. But you take that list and then you basically build out columns and you do January through December. And what I like to do is highlight each cell for the month that I want to complete it. So like say you want to clean your carpets as one of your tasks, then you don't probably need to do that every month. So do you want to do it once a year? Do you want to do it twice a year? Do you want to do it every quarter? Like things like that. And then you just go in and highlight your goal month to complete that task. And then when you're planning out each month and you're sitting down and you're doing your Sunday brain dump or anything like that, you're looking at those tasks. And then at the end, like at the end of December, if you're planning for January, then you would take a look at that and grab like a Post-it or something and look at all of your January tasks and then just write them on that Post-it and pull them to the front of your planner. Although you said you didn't have a paper planner yet. So you could just use this list and just look at it. But all you're doing is when you're looking at your planning for your week, just pull out a couple of those and focus on those. Those are your like priority tasks for the week because you don't have to worry about the other stuff because you know when it's going to get done. And then when you actually accomplish it, you go in and you just do an X over the highlighted spaces. So sometimes they might not align with the highlights because you just didn't get to it. Sometimes you might do it ahead of time. And then it kind of helps to plan for the next year is when you kind of look at that. It's like, okay, how much did I actually do? Was I okay with that amount? What do I need to shift for this year? And it just makes it really easy. And then you don't have to worry about all the things you need to get to because you have a plan for those. If you think of something else, just add it to the list and figure out when you'd like to do it. And it makes it a lot less stressful. And then you also kind of don't forget about some things that are always on your mind, like maybe changing like the air filters or the smoke detector batteries, things like that, that are just always in the back of your mind. Like, oh, I need to get to it, but you don't have to worry about it anymore. It just makes it really easy. So do you have any questions on that one?
No.
Okay. So once you have the daily 7 in place, then I would move to a movement routine and getting really comfortable with what you have planned for that. And are you somebody that likes movement or exercise or anything like that?
I was really good for a while about um what I found out I like to do is I like to walk around our island and read a book because
Oh,
I don't get to read like I'm always reading kid stuff or kid geared books, like at bedtime we have a devotional we read the Bible, and then we're going through a series of books that I read to the kids. But I found out that it's easier for me to get like steps in if I'm also like reading a book and I can just walk around my island and I'm not thinking about how much walking I'm actually doing. And I also get to
that's
read.
smart. Yep.
So that's worked really well. And that worked really well for a period of time. And then I started, why it kind of stopped was I started an evening Bible study at church. And that just kind of threw in a wrench into that routine that I had. So then then it was too hard because I needed to be spending that evening time doing my Bible study like homework, which is not something I could like walk around and do. I would be doing
Yeah.
like a couple laps and then I'd have to sit down and write my answer because writing and walking, yeah, that's not as easy as just being able to read. And then I just walk around and that's what I think I would implement back in. And then I get to read books and actually, like that to read list, I can actually get through that and start reading books. Um,
Yeah.
so that's what I've enjoyed in the past. And that's probably something that's simple that I would bring back in. And then I guess if I would start an evening Bible study again, I just have to figure out how that would work with a movement routine. But
Yeah.
um,
And if you're doing a Bible study and it's the writing piece that is kind of throwing you off to not be able to do the walking, I wonder too if depending on how you're doing the Bible study, if you are reading, a physical book, or even I guess even if you're not, you can kind of swipe off of it to do like a notes app. Like I love Google Keep. It works
yes,
really well. And then just do an audio where you're still walking, you kind of like verbally say your answer or your note
yes,
and then go
yes.
back, and then you can go back to once you're ready to sit down. I mean, depending on if you have time to sit down then and look through your notes and things like that, or if depending on what you're doing with it. But that might be something that would allow you to continue doing your walking routine if you really like that and still be able to take your notes.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So then once you have that one in place, then I would move to your budget routine if you don't have something like that. And I like the budget routine. I think it's really important. The only reason I do it last is because I feel like it can be very overwhelming. So it's easier to get some of these other things in place so you feel less overwhelmed, and then it makes it a little bit easier to approach a budgeting routine. So that one does have a little bit more in depth. So do you have anything like that in place right now, or is that one that you feel like you'd be interested in?
I think it's something we need to work on. I think we have a basic, like, big picture. This is what we're up to. But we have never gotten to the point where we really sit down or really figure out, like, this is how much we need for this or that. Kind of a big picture idea, but we've never put anything like down on paper or really figured it out.
Okay. And when you're ready to do that, I think one of the cool things to do first is to take like previous bank statements and just highlight, like anything in groceries is going to be highlighted, green, and then go down and highlight all those things. And then just kind of get a snapshot of what you're spending where
Mhm.
and start there. Like that can be your starting point where, over the last 3 to 6 months, this is how much we've spent each month on groceries alone. So are we comfortable with that? Or do we want to try and hit a goal to go less than that? Things like that to make it really easy as a starting point to figure out where you're comfortable and where you want to change some things. And then there are a lot of different ways that you can do budgeting. And I won't go into the details here. I don't think we have time, but there are a lot of different ways to do that. And there are apps. I use a spreadsheet, and I do have some episodes that talk about that. And I'm actually I haven't mentioned it on the course of what I'm doing, but we are putting together a course that
Oh,
will actually walk through some of these things in more detail and help you get things set up and have the resources available, which will be really exciting. And then it'll be a little bit easier to explain what I'm talking about when we have those resources that are like physically able to just give them to you. So that'll help a lot. And then once you have those routines, I think the really cool thing is that once you feel like you have these routines in place and you have like that go-to that becomes the default, and it takes the guesswork or the stress about getting to these things out, because you just know exactly what to do, and they're all in a very short period of time. They all take very little time. So you just plug them into your day where it works. And if it's not working at that time, you adjust it a little bit. And once you do that, then it makes it a lot easier to plan out your week. And that's when we go into like learning how to build your day stacks. And that's combining the Google Calendar with a paper planner if you choose to have a paper planner. I really love having the paper planner, not for scheduling, but for just working out that weekly flow, which is kind of where you would see if you're going to church that Wednesday evening and things are going to be tight, then it kind of gives you that reminder, okay, when are we going to plan for clothes? And if we're going to be really busy between Wednesday, getting home from school and then going to church, then do we need to put out 2 outfits Tuesday night? And then, maybe
mhm.
something like that. And so it just kind of helps you look at your week at like that bird's eye view and to see what is happening, what do I kind of need to plan for as much as I can, and then just what comes first, what comes next. And it just makes it really easy to plan. At that time, you can kind of figure out what your meals are if you need to, what your priority tasks are for the week. But then you just have everything plugged in, and it just makes it go so much smoother. Obviously, life isn't perfect, so it won't go exactly as is, but we're not going for perfection. It's just the stress of being taken away when we have it all planned out, and then we have a system to follow as much as we can until something throws it off. But what I really like about the day stacks is like if something does come up where we can't get to something right then, it's really easy to shift it and move it to just another day, because you have the ability to see like, okay, I have more time in here, I can
Mhm.
just do it there, and then it's not going to stress me out that I can't get to it today. So it just makes it really easy. Does that cover what you wanted? Is there anything else that you want to go over? I think we're pretty close here.
I I mean, I think this is good, just kind of having an explanation and talking through it. it gives a plan of what I should start focusing on and then starting to build in. So I think this is a good, I've got my notes and then I can start tackling it. And then as things get into more routine and just keep adding when I feel comfortable.
That sounds good. Yeah, and I wouldn't rush it, like, especially with the holidays. Like,
Mhm.
take your time and focus on one, and once you feel really comfortable with that, then just add the next one in and do it over a period of time. It might take you a few weeks, it might take you a few months, and that's okay. Getting used to the one is going to help you build the consistency to keep it going when you add the next one in without it feeling overwhelming.
Sounds good.
I hope you really enjoyed that conversation with Karen. And if you found it helpful and you would like to jump on a call like this with me and just talk through whatever you need to, I do have one-on-one coaching calls available. They are limited because I can only do so many hours in a month. So if you are interested, you can either email us at theroutineadvantagepodcast@gmail.com and we can kind of walk you through the process there, or you can go to yourorganizedlifeblueprint.com and then you can check it out there and you can book right from that site as well. So you can take a look at that if you want. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and I will see you on the next episode.